What is going on? It is Nate the Game Guy coming back with another video at hand. And today I want to talk to you guys about problems when collecting for the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 was the most successful game console from the 6th generation, and if I'm not mistaken, it's also the best-selling home video game console of all time. The console has seen a lot of success, and I would be willing to argue that it is one of the best consoles to collect for if you're on a budget. However, even though the console itself can provide a lot of great experiences to many people, but unfortunately is not all sunshine and rainbows when it comes to owning and collecting for the console. In this video, I plan to look and talk to you guys about some of the problems that come with collecting for the PlayStation 2 when it comes to the games and the hardware itself. So, without further ado, let's take a look at some of these problems when it comes to collecting for the PlayStation 2 right after the intro. Alright, so before I dive right into this video subject, I just want to give a quick moment and say if you guys do enjoy the video at any time, please do consider giving it a like. It really helps me out, helps grow the channel, helps boost the video up into the YouTube algorithm so more viewers such as you can find videos just like this. And of course, please do consider subscribing because I post a ton of content when it comes to game collecting tips, and other video game related subjects. So if that is something that you guys are interested in, please do consider subscribing. But if you're going to subscribe, do not forget to hit the bell notification button so that way you will be notified when I upload a video just like this. Now, let's talk about the first problem when it comes to collecting for the PlayStation 2, and that is disc rot. So what is disc rot essentially? It is when a disc begins to rot away, either because of climate, right? Climate where it's like really hot and humid and all that. It can be poor manufacturing where the disc wasn't manufactured properly. Unfortunately, disc rot is a real thing. I have come across it multiple times, and there are ways on what you can do to protect your collection from disc rot and try to slow things down and all that wonderful stuff. I have a video right here that you guys can check out where I go into a lot more detail when it comes to the subject of disc rot. But since we are talking about a disc-based system such as the PlayStation 2, unfortunately, disc rot is a real issue that can come across with these games. But if you guys do watch my video, I will explain to you guys on things that you can do to help protect your game collection and at least try to slow it down when it comes to that matter, because after all, nothing is more tragic than you wanting to pop a game in one day, you try to play it, you just can't get it to play just because, you know, there's disc rot. So unfortunately, that is a real issue when it comes to collecting for the PlayStation 2. Now, of course, this is a real problem when it comes to the PlayStation 2, and that is the laser going out. This, unfortunately, affects all models of the PlayStation 2, whether it is the Fat or the Slim. It is a real issue that these lasers are dying, and when they die, you can't play your games, you can't listen to music off of a CD, anything that's involving a disc you no longer can use. When it comes to a few signs, when it comes to the disc laser beginning to go out, some games will be able to work and others will not be able to work. For example, if you have a blue disc, it may not work, or it could be vice versa. A clear disc may not work, right? Because when the PlayStation 2 was a thing, you used to have clear bottom discs and blue bottom discs, right? So unfortunately, that is a thing that you can tell. Also, DVDs, CDs, right? So if you do decide to pick up a PlayStation 2, you may want to test it out to be sure Will it play DVDs, CDs, blue bottom discs, and clear bottom discs? Sadly, when it does come to the disk drive going out, or not the disk drive, but the disk laser, there are lots of replacement parts that you can get for the PlayStation 2, because after all, there's quite a bit of a market there, because we are talking about one of the best-selling game consoles of all time. So the demand is there. You can get plenty of replacement parts for this from third-party manufacturers. You just can't get any authentic parts for the PlayStation 2 simply because Sony discontinued this a very long time ago. So it is literally impossible to get new replacement parts unless if you happen to find like a brand new in the box PlayStation 2 on eBay and you rip it up to get some of those parts inside just to make it authentic. But unfortunately, when it comes to the PlayStation 2, whether it is a fat or a slim, a dying laser is a real issue that can happen, so that is something you might want to be mindful when collecting for the PlayStation 2. Now, unfortunately, I discovered this is a super common issue that I do have first-hand experience with, and that is the power adapter going out on PS2 fat models or original models. Now, when I say the power adapter, I'm not talking about the power cable that goes to the console. What I'm talking about is the part inside of the console that allows the PS2 to turn on and to turn off. Essentially, what happened to me one day was I wanted to play a game after using my PS2 about a week or two ago. Unfortunately, when I tried to turn it on, it did not want to turn on. I tried checking the cable, plugging it in, replugging it, all that wonderful stuff. It did not want to turn on. After doing a little bit of some research online and watching some YouTube videos, this is a very common problem that's happening to PS2 fat models. Essentially, all the power adapters inside are beginning to die out because they only last so long, and yeah, it's basically time for a whole bunch of them to kick the bucket. Now, thankfully, this was a part that was pretty easy and inexpensive to replace. It was just about $10 to $15 from a third-party manufacturer on eBay. There was no soldering involved whatsoever. It was just unscrewing a few things here and there when it came to opening up the console. After taking out the old and putting in the new, I had my PS2 up and running and good to go again. So if you happen to have a PS2 fat model or are planning to buy a PS2 fat model, that is a issue that's not really a matter of if you're going to have it, but when you're going to have it. So I would recommend start checking some of your PS2 fat models that you got. I'm not saying this to scare anybody. It's just one of those things where, you know, it's just going to happen eventually, but thankfully the fix isn't really that hard. Of course, I won't talk about and show you guys how to fix it. There's already a lot of people that do that already here on YouTube. But I will say, when it comes to PS2 fat models, that is something you are definitely going to want to keep in mind. Now, this is a very common problem when it comes to PlayStation 2 Slims. That is, when the disc tray is closed, you cannot have games or discs read. Essentially, what happens is there are these two little plastic pieces connected to the disc tray. They press down on these little buttons inside of the PS2 Slim console, and when both buttons are pressed down, it will make the disc reader play the disc of said game, movie, CD, whatever. Unfortunately, what happens over time is some of those plastic pieces get worn down. Sometimes there are just other things that just, you know, make the buttons not press all the way down, or the plastic pieces don't reach the buttons. And essentially, you've got a PS2 Slim that does not play games. I've had firsthand experience with this when I used to flip PS2 Slims to help fund my collection. Unfortunately, there are not any disc trays that you can get for it that look similar to the authentic model of disc tray from the PS2 Slims. There are disc trays that you can buy to replace, but they're not going to look like the original disc tray at all. It's quite an eyesore. However, what I would do to help fix these problems is I would get like a piece of black duct tape, and I would try to figure out which button was not being pressed when the disc tray was closed down, and I would put the duct tape on it so that way it would stay. And thankfully, when I would place the duct tape, it would be very not obvious at all that, you know, there was duct tape underneath some of that plastic casing. You can't put the duct tape onto both of them, because when they are both pressed, what's going to happen is the second that PlayStation 2 Slim is turned on, it's going to just immediately start spinning the disc when there's no disc inside of it, which clearly is not good. But unfortunately, this is a very, very common issue when it comes to PS2 Slims. One of the ways that you can figure out if you have this problem is press down on the disc tray, and if your game or your movie or whatever starts reading, that's how you know you've got that problem. But if you do happen to get a PS2 Slim or already have a PS2 Slim, that is something to keep in mind about, that is a very common problem and can be a very common occurrence for PS2 Slim owners. Now, of course, this is an issue that I cannot forget about, and that is the sticky surfaces of the L3 and R3 analog sticks. It is so annoying that this is a thing. Unfortunately, not only does this affect PS2, but it also affects PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 3. Now, I'm not sure exactly what materials Sony decided to use when it came to the DualShock and 6-axis controllers across these consoles, but unfortunately, there is sometimes some wear and tear where it makes the L3 and R3 analog sticks sticky on the surface. It's super annoying. I hate it, and I'm sure a lot of you guys hate it as well. Now, I do know what you can do is open up your controller and buy some replacement parts where you can swap out the analog sticks with some new ones where they obviously won't be sticky. But I do have to say, when it does come to collecting for the PlayStation 2, you are probably going to run into eventually some of those analog sticks where the surfaces are just going to be sticky. It's just not fun at all. Just no. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out my video. Please be sure to check out these videos here, and here. After all, I post a lot of content when it comes to game collecting tips, and other video game related subjects. So be sure to keep an eye out every Monday and Friday where I upload consistently, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.